DXC, that's culture.
Welcome, folks. On today's episode, we're hanging out with Shaun Dix, a global lead for creative excellence at Ipsos. He's also a grand jury for the Effies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's also the best presenter, best of the best presenter at the Effies.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a tough one, though, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a
I'm
tough
just a
one.
podcaster, as you know. I'm just a podcaster. So Shaun is not gonna touch me on my studio. Welcome, Shaun. How you doing, brother?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You
Thanks,
good?
Soboko. Yeah, really happy to be here.
Yeah.
Happy to be in Jersey. It's home for me, but
Yeah.
obviously you know that I live in Hamburg in Germany, but
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds, what you said about Effie, it sounds very important, but it is always a pleasure and a privilege to be involved with the Effie organization and to judge the campaigns. So
Yeah.
happy to be in this
Happy to be
in
home.
Randburg.
Yeah. I know. So you are South African, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
yes.
were born here. You grew
Yeah.
up here.
So I was born in Johannesburg, in Rosebank.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Grew up in the northern suburbs in Joburg. Actually went to school down the road from the studio. So Rand Park High many years ago.
Oh, okay.
So obviously. But yeah, I grew up here, spent most of my childhood and university days here, and then I started my working career in South Africa. And I left South Africa about 20 years ago or so, 21 years ago,
Jeez.
to follow my then girlfriend, my wife.
Yeah.
So
Love took you across the world.
love took me all the way to Germany, not
Yeah.
knowing what I was getting myself into, quite
Yeah.
honestly, personally and professionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how you finding Germany? How's Germany, man? It's
Well, yeah, it's an interesting country. I mean, I don't actually have German roots or any connection to Germany, so it was quite a culture shock in the beginning.
yeah.
I mean, the language is one thing. Obviously, German is very different to Afrikaans. I could
Yeah.
speak Afrikaans, that's not my first language. So.
Yeah.
But the culture is very different to South Africa. You can think of it like the economy and the way the business works is a well-oiled machine. Things are changing a little bit now, but it's very different to South Africa. It's a lot more vibrant and entrepreneurial, if you will,
Yeah.
in the way that it is. So I missed that quite a lot, and it was quite an adjustment for me when I got to Germany. But there were other things that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
So, being in Europe, in Germany, you are close to all the other European countries. So from that perspective, you get exposure to a lot of different cultures, languages, and way of doing. So it was a good steep learning curve for me, honestly.
Oh, cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think tell us a little bit about your role at Ipsos. You are a global lead. Jeez,
Yeah.
man, that's a big role. And I think also while at that, I think also you can just tell us about what Ipsos does. I mean, I know Ipsos, a research company. Take us a little bit, through what you do at Ipsos and what Ipsos is essentially.
Okay, so let's start off with Ipsos, and then I'll go to myself.
Yeah.
So Ipsos is a market research company. It's one of the largest market research companies globally. I think, I don't know the rankings today, maybe third or fourth largest globally. We're in 90 countries. We have about more than 20,000 people working for us around the world. Headquartered in Paris, was started in 1975, so around the time I was born, so now you know how old I am. And it's interesting because the company is still independently owned, which is not the case for companies the size of ours. Most of the companies have some form of an equity partner or private equity involved, but we are really independent. We're listed on the Paris Stock Exchange, but we are independently run and managed by researchers, and that makes us uniquely different, I would say, to the bigger companies. And then what we do is we cover anything, in terms of research, so from public polling to social research to research with consumers, with citizens, and that's really broad strokes. So that's what we do in every corner of the world. My role at Ipsos is to lead creative excellence, as you said, Tebogo, globally. So what is that? I lead everything to do with advertising research. And my role is to basically come up with a vision, a strategy for what we call the service line, so the business unit, what is the product portfolio, thought leadership and fame, and looking to kind of have industry partnerships like the one you mentioned with Effie. And I've been doing this for about 6 years now. It's my 6th year.
Yeah.
And when I started, I was given basically the responsibility of like injecting sort of a new focus in this area, because Ipsos has a long heritage and history of working in the advertising research industry. In fact, when Didier Truchot started the company, 75, he's still involved, the founder. He started doing a lot of advertising research, more post-testing in those days. But what we have is 50 years of experience, a wealth of experience and expertise in this area. But we had lost our mojo a little bit in this space, so came along and we reset it in 2018. And I started with naming ourselves as Creative Excellence. So we were the first in the research industry to really say, okay, if we're working with marketing people, with agencies, let's try and position ourselves differently, because we're kind of seen as the Kill Bills in the industry. You know, agency people might think, you know, here come the advertising researchers, and, you know, they're going to kill my campaign that I've spent weeks and hours and nights and weekends working on. And so our objective was really to position ourselves differently. So it was really a cool opportunity to bring a bit of magic into the business. And so I think I'm really privileged. I have a great role in the company, and let's be honest, in this industry, in advertising and creativity, it's fun.
It is.
First of all, it never gets boring.
Yeah.
There is a lot of really great campaigns that we can talk about, but there's also a lot of average and mediocre stuff. So advertisers need to learn, they need insights, and so that's where we offer, you know, this kind of information, and I guess our vision is to try and help advertisers to raise the bar in the quality of the advertising.
The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Misfits.
So and I think to my, I think in the back of that whole thing, I think that's what who Steve Jobs say. Advertising guys are not really for research that much, especially creative guys. What is your relationship with those guys? I think creative agency side of things, because I know marketers really, they're really for you guys because they're all about effectiveness of marketing and all of that. But I think, like to your point now, you just said, I think creative guys are more like, but this guy's gonna kill my vibe and all of that. You know, what is your relationship with the creative?
Yeah, I would say it's got a lot better, thank goodness. And I think it's because we've shown a lot of empathy for the advertising agencies. And I think that's where you need to start. You know, even if, let's say, you're in a difficult position, you've tested a bunch of ads for a client, and these ads are average or below average. Let's say they haven't done well. We need to, when we report those results back and we have the ad agency in the room, the market in the room, have empathy for the fact that they've actually spent time and effort on those campaigns, blood, sweat and tears, and not to come in and say everything is bad and negative, although it might be, is to start off with what did we learn. So the conversation needs to change, and the tonality is not to sugarcoat it, but to say, even if you've done research and the results are not what you expected, you can still extract learnings out of the research, and that's our role, is to help. It's only 50% or maybe even less, helps the market and the agency steer, you know, give them direction like a compass. So I would say building the bridge to the ad agency is one of the things we've tried to do. But to your point, I remember, you know, I lived in the US from 2015 to 2018. I used to go to New York a lot. We were talking about it earlier. And there was a big brewery that I was working quite closely with at the time, and they just got over a new ad agent, worked with several of the world's leading ad agencies, and they just got the roster for Wyden and Kennedy, or got Wyden and Kennedy on board. And Wyden, and if you know, Wyden and Kennedy are very critical of
Weekend
research.
in Kennedy.
They came out basically presenting to the clients and the marketers of why research is a bad idea. And you know, one of my close colleagues who works with me, this French lady, Aurélie, she always says to me, keep your enemies close to you. And what I did with that is I could have just gone in defensive mode and said,
Yeah.
you know, you guys are wrong. I started to build a bridge with one of the guys there who's the chief strategy officer for Wieden in New York at the time. So I remember I even name him because he's a fantastic guy, Nick Doherty. And we tried to work together to fix basically the perception of that these two entities can't work together. We already had stronger relationships with other agencies, but this was kind of my objective. And then through the process of some projects, he could see and the Wieden team could see the value that we were adding in some of the projects that we were doing for them. So that's one example.
Yeah.
The other example is simply to show the industry, agencies included, the kind of findings that they're probably not expecting. You mentioned Misfits, right? So Misfits, I'll talk about, that's a book we published in 2022.
Yeah.
And the Misfits, if you think of the definition of Misfits, the Oxford Dictionary definition would be non-stereotypical.
Yeah.
And maybe even have a negative connotation to the word, right? So you think of, oh, those are the badasses, the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
The way we look at it is, yes, non-stereotypical, but with a different twist, adds end value to the audience. And so one of the things we saw in one of our data points is that actually ads that really do well and stick in people's minds for the brands are the ones that are non-conforming.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of misfitty. So if you think of, like, let's talk about insurance, and we speak about South Africa and why Pineapple is the grand Effie winner, is because probably they've done something different to the rest of the insurance companies out there. And it's the same if you look at the US, if you look at Geico or Progressive or some of the big names there, is because they've done something that's non-conforming.
Yeah.
So here's the kicker. Agencies will rejoice when they hear that.
Yeah.
Because their whole thing is they go in and they pitch their ideas and they're saying basically, dear marketer or dear CFO, CEO, whoever they have to present to, is that we need to think of story arcs that are bolder, that are braver, and they're not conforming to these kind of constraints that everybody recognizes that are maybe not so helpful, because what we as human beings do is we blind out things that we recognize over and over. It's because our brains are wired that way. And so that is one point that is a sweet spot for agencies and marketers, is to say, hey, be the misfits. Do something different, because it is actually going to help you stick out from the rest of the pack, and that's what you want. You want to be remembered for your brand.
Now, so now where does the effectiveness of advertising ties in, or the effectiveness of marketing ties in? Does it's part of the
So yeah, I mean, I mentioned the book, so I'll put it up again. I mean,
put it up.
So
all the time.
you could say, like, you know, one of the things we talk about in the book is like there are different paths to effectiveness, and just having creativity for the sake of creativity is not enough. So what we did in the book is we took a lot of inspiration from popular culture.
Yeah.
And if you look at popular culture, there are a couple of principles that filmmakers use, gaming companies use, musicians use. You can think of Nintendo and the Zelda game, and how many different versions of Zelda they've had and they've brought out. And the ones that really do well and create a profit for that gaming company are the ones that blend a principle of familiarity and originality, right? Because Zelda is all about something that's familiar for the gamers. They want to find something that they can still latch onto, but then that is original. So the games that really do that well are the ones that succeed, right? So that's a principle of familiarity and originality. So if we look at creativity and effectiveness, just by having creative stories that are, let's say, very strong in originality or emotion, let's say emotion. A lot of the talk on the street is that emotions are everything. I would argue that's not right, because it's not enough. And what we see in the data in this book that we wrote is that, yes, creativity is important, but if you have a low level of empathy, let's say your level of credibility to act in a certain way, the closeness to what's important for people, for your product, or your brand, how does it fit with people? If that's low, and you have a high level of creativity, but the empathy is low, it can have a negative effect on your creative effectiveness. So just by being engaging and original is not enough. You have to have empathy. And if you understand that empathy, that's the golden thread. and you can do something that can give you on average a lift of, in linear video, of as much as 20%.
Yeah.
And now if you think of social media like Facebook and Instagram, this empathy part is even more important. It's not just about entertaining people. You actually have to have a high level of empathy, because the mind state of when you go into Facebook or Instagram
I like that.
is very different
Yeah.
to maybe some other platforms. And so empathy becomes a very important part of it. So that's kind of was like a major aha for us, finding. And it should be good for the industry to hear that, because it means, what does it mean at the end of the day?
Yeah.
It means you need to understand everyday people,
Yeah.
right? You need to understand those human truths, what's important for them, and how brands can use that as kind of their weapon.
Yeah.
And,
And then who is the target audience for this book? Who should read the book, and why should they? Well, I mean, I suppose you just explain now why should they be reading the book, but
Well,
who's the book for?
Well, I'd like to say anybody. I mean, the purpose of us doing this book is, so my colleague Adam Sheridan, who works with me, he actually authored the book.
Yeah.
We worked on it together as a team, but yeah, the original target audience is for marketers, obviously for brand marketers, could be for a CEO,
Yeah.
CMO, could also be for the insights world,
Yeah.
but it also could be for creative people. I mean, it's not a typical textbook. If you open it up and you look at it, it's very visual, it's graphic, it's got cases from Effie, it's got our own perspective on the definition of creativity in advertising. For example, if you ask 5 different ad agencies what their perspective is or definition is of creativity in advertising, you'll get 5 different answers.
Yes.
Because each one has a different take on it, and that's fine. But that's problematic, because how do companies align with that?
Yeah.
Some companies have several agencies working on. So we just said, okay, let's talk about creativity.
Yes.
Let's give the marketers some form of evidence that will help them in the boardroom with the CFOs or the CEOs. Provide evidence that creativity in advertising is good for brands and will help brands succeed. And so the audience could be everyone that I mentioned, but it could be the CFO or CEO. Why not?
To better understand.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the forwards in this book is Tracy Alford, who's the CEO of Effie. And we did that deliberately because we like what Effie stands for. It's about effectiveness, ideas that work. And so it's not just about any award. Effie is not just about some of the other, I won't mention them, but other awards that are given out.
I would like you to mention them.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit dangerous, but they have another role, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that they're bad, they have another role, and they're
Yeah.
more subjective, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But Effie is about the hard facts, right?
Yeah.
You have to prove yourself. And so the book is more than that. It takes Effie cases, Ipsos data, inspiration from popular culture, etc. And so I'd say any person involved in sort of advertising, marketing, trying to build their brand, this is a good book to read.
And I quite like your partnership with the Effies. I think it's one for the money. It's spot on. I think because you guys are you follow the same narrative, or you have a similar outlook. I mean, which is effective marketing. Which is for me, it's like, okay, at least we don't necessarily just see we don't just see ads that are being thrown out there, because a lot of creative agencies. And look, I'm a creative myself, and I'm not here to be bashing creatives and all in one point. But I think we need to go back to that whole thing where there's effectiveness, there's a return on investment as well. You can't just be doing all these things and just running around and getting a big celebrity on. We were talking the other day about the Super Bowl, as which we'll come back to now. So I was just saying, I think kudos to you guys. I mean, how long is this the partnership been running for?
So we have had in some countries a partnership with Effie, for example, in Latin America for decades. But this particular partnership I started in 2018, and sort of talking to myself and my US counterparts, talking to Tracy Alford, as I mentioned already.
Yeah.
And we started with the US and Effie worldwide. And then, so the US was the first market where we really did more than just having a jury presence and judging. But what we did is we said, hey, let's have a proper partnership where we develop content, we write the reports. And so we started by involving ourselves in writing the report, the Effie report in the US.
Yeah.
We also got the opportunity to do some keynote speeches at Effie, which was great. And then that kind of multiplied. So the next market was the UK.
Yeah.
And then we've now in more than 17 countries.
Oh, so it's still rolling out. It's a rollout.
Oh, all the time. Because the way that Effie works is it's Effie worldwide is probably a few countries, 3 or 4 that are in there. So US, UK, and China. I might be missing one.
Yeah.
But then the rest of like South Africa is it's like works like a franchise, so a joint venture. So Effie is run with AXA, the Advertising Association of South Africa is running. So Gillian is running that. And so many of the countries have that sort of, Germany, it's the GWA. And so we had to like speak to each of the countries separately. But Effie Worldwide has been very good because they've helped and supported the cause. Because here, the thing is, we have a joint vested interest in this.
Yes.
So we want to show the industry, you know, how this can help them. It should be inspiring. Share the cases. They're great cases that a lot of people are not exposed to. And what we've done and Quinton's done in South Africa is injected insights into this, our own insights, our own meta learning. And as we've gone along, we've gathered more and more learning throughout these reports and content that we've done. So now we have, you know, a wealth of information. So that's really, really good. I want to come back to one point you mentioned about the ad agencies. Yeah. Because I think it's not only, the challenge doesn't lead, you know, only lie with the ad agencies. I think ad agencies also get quite frustrated because the companies that they work with are very controlling. Sometimes they're very political. And they don't give enough room in the early stages of the creative development process to the agencies. This is a researcher talking. Okay. Right. And they need to, in my opinion, yes, you need a tight brief. You need to know what your goal is. And you need to understand what the brand is about, and the marketer owns that. But I think they should give more freedom to the agencies to allow the agencies to come up with more ideas, not less ideas. So sometimes we get a, you know, brief for, let's test one big idea. What use is that? Unless you're very clear and certain on the big idea, fine. But, or let's say we've got routes, we've got 2 routes. Why not have 5? Rather take a few routes and pick the best out of them and learn in the early stages of the development and give the agency the freedom to come up with more ideas.
But now, could that not be the budget constraints?
Yeah, but if you're in the early stage, yes, maybe. I don't think so though, because it can actually...
Because it means more time, more resources.
No, it can save you what we see from the work we do, and we work with loads of global companies with all sorts of challenges, smaller companies with tighter budgets. And every brand has a different budget, right? Here's the thing. The more time you spend upfront early on doing research properly and giving the freedom to the agency and the researchers to provide more information upfront will save you tons of time and money later on. Because let's say you haven't done enough early research early on, and you're going to the stage of, okay, we're backing one horse, we produce a couple of animatics, which cost money, we'll put it into the research machine. I'm even saying this as a researcher, the sausage factory. We'll test all those ads. We maybe have not get the best ad, but we go on air because we're pressure now. We have to put something out there. The competition is, the retailers need the ad out there, etc., etc. You know how it is. So we put that ad out. Now the ad performs suboptimally. So you've spent all of that money backing a horse that's not really great. If you start earlier, you may have a better idea in the beginning. So put more weight on the upfront stuff. And what we typically see is that will save you more money, more time in the production. It'll get you a better return on your investment. Because at the end of the day, the media money, not just the production money, but the media money is also where the weight of the spend is. So if you're spending money on something that's not really good, you're burning your cash, basically, right? So our view is, you know, do better work early on and you will reap the reward.
Also, I think another question that I wanted to ask, how long does research last? I mean, if so you've done research on your brand or your whatever product, how long can this research be recycled? I think particularly on the client side, on the creative side. How long does it stay in the ecosystem?
So I think that's
Or
an
do you
in-
have,
that's-
is it a yearly thing? You have to do research on a yearly basis?
Okay, so two things. One, so if you're doing actual projects, I know that's not your question, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Sure.
If you're doing actual projects, you want to do that on a regular basis. It should follow the process of your creative development process, depending on how that is. But you will run the projects in sync with the process that you have. So, for example, you're coming up with a creative brief.
Yeah.
Get the research agency involved at that stage. And I'm talking about not just the qual guys, but your agency that's going to work with you on the creative and the advertising, so that they know, actually understand the line of sight, what the objectives are. Maybe they'll even have some input into the research phases. So the project can start then, right? And then the input follows the creative development process. Some are quicker, some are longer, can take 3 months, can take 6 months, can take a lot shorter, depending on the rush. Once you've actually delivered all the research and input, your question is, how long can the value of that research last?
Sure.
Actually, it can be, and this is the thing that I think we miss a lot of the time sometimes in the organizations, is the project is done, it's executed, people file it somewhere in an electronic cabinet, and they don't look back at it.
Yeah.
So some of the best brands in the world are the ones that understand, if you think of the very successful ones, McDonald's, are absolutely, how can I say, pedantic about the amount of data and being careful about looking at back data and understanding that they're on course, the ship is sailing in the right direction. I think that's no different from any other brand. If you're not a new brand and you have a brand with a history, look back at some of the research. You don't have to read the whole report, but look at the findings, take the best out of that, because some of that stuff's going to help you, prepare for your next phase of your campaign. Again, that Nintendo example I gave. Take the level of familiarity, what people thought was good and strong, and that's important for the brand. Use that as your muscle. Use that as your competitive advantage as you go along. Things like distinctive assets. That can help a brand build. What are the things that people remember? Was there certain kinds of music that they latched onto? Is it characters in the advertising that you used originally? Tonality. Is it colors? Is it sonic? Whatever. Right. So I'd say that is a part. The good companies do a good job, leverage insights that have been there for a while, look back at them, and use them. I think that's
how
important.
many of the organization actually believe in research and actually utilize research? I think approach you guys to say, hey, Ipsos, we need your help.
No, I think the ones that are, I think thank goodness, a lot of companies are taking research really seriously. There are some that say we don't need to test advertising. There are some big guns and that say we don't need to do advertising research, for example. They'll do research in other ways. Fine. Some of them, very few of them can get away with that for whatever reason. But I would say the brands that are successful on a regular basis are trying to understand their target audience, trying to understand consumers, what makes them tick on a regular basis, because those are the people who are going to buy their products and their services and their brands at the end of the day. If you don't understand your audience, it's going to be tricky, because the world has become a lot more dynamic. There are brands and companies popping up every day. And so if you want to remain market leader, or you want to challenge and become market leader, you have to do research. And the companies that do that really well are the ones that succeed. I mentioned McDonald's there. I've read some of the, as part of you mentioned it, the best of the best global Effie's jury. I went through some of those cases, and the cases that were really strong were the ones that had a lot of data in it and understood what was happening. And those are the ones that are generally doing well. In my market where I'm sitting, you look at telecommunications. You could say in telecommunications, you've got Vodafone, Cell C, and MTN. You'd say, okay, that's very tactical, and the campaigns and the communication that they share is very promotional driven, contracts, handsets, better connectivity, right? True. But what does it take to get the edge in that market? The brands that do it really well have brand, marketing, that's brand focused, and not only product and tactical led. So where I come from, Deutsche Telekom is a leading brand in Germany.
Hmm.
It's leading in Germany for a reason. It's leading in Europe for a reason. They have T-Mobile in many other markets because they have a really clear strategy on connecting your world and think of everything that evolves around people use their services. So they have product tactical campaigns, but they have brand campaigns that are even in some respects, I would say, purpose-led. That's a question that a lot of marketers would debate with me.
Yeah.
But they're already focused on saying, okay, we operate in the internet and telecommunications industry. So our job is to do something to show the industry and the people that use our services that we're also against certain things. Hate on social, for example, protecting people's identity online, kids online, showing the importance of social media online. And there's a correlation between those kind of brand efforts and their knowledge about understanding their consumer and the research that they do, a lot of research to understand how can they keep the edge on their competitors. And I think companies that do it really well succeed.
But I mean, those are massive, big budgeted companies on it. I'm thinking, small to medium companies. I mean, I don't think some of these guys really understand, research to that, level. Because I think the most of the guys who understand research is legacy companies, brands really understand research fully. But I think is there a drive for you guys to kind of go to the guys who are, coming up in the market? Or
100% sure. No, look, I mentioned a lot of really big companies now, and you get the drift. But we have Ipsos as a long tail of clients. We work with medium-sized companies, some small companies. Yes. So the same thing applies. Maybe the budgets and the projects are smaller. But the same thing applies. I mean, you've got to understand the pool of people you want to target, right? Whether it's B2C or B2B. So you got to understand them, because if you want to have an edge over somebody else, you've got to know, okay, what can I do to understand my people? How can my campaigns reflect the brand and the services that are going to target that? I can remember when I was in the US, there was an up and coming brand called Harry's Shavers. So it's a shave. I don't shave that often, as you can see, but you're competing against Gillette, Wilkinson Sword, some of the brand, the products like Bic, which is a cheaper one, or you could say even some of these what do you call it, discounter brands, right? So Harry's came up, and I mean, the story of this, you can look it up online. I don't know if they're even around anymore, but they were like coming up from nothing, and they created brilliant creative that it was just 10 times better than anything that Gillette, P&G may send a lightning strike to me now. We're in Johannesburg, so anything can happen. But they did, I would say, phenomenal advertising, 10 times better than any of the others. And they appealed to their target audience. I want to say they were very clear about who they were trying to target. They understood the male consumer very clearly, and they started to speak to them in a way that was really cool. I can't remember the campaigns, but it's stuck in my mind because you said that. So there are brands that come up.
So that came it came from research, you say?
They understood. No, we didn't work with them at that stage.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just giving you an example of, you say medium-sized and small companies, how can they do better, right?
They
need to understand who they're going to go after. They understand that, okay, Gillette is dominating, the market mainly. There's Wilkinson Sword, there are others. What is our point of difference? What do people really want? And I think they understood the male consumer a little bit better than the others. And their communication, their brand activation was more targeted. They used online, they used social media very cleverly, and had campaigns actually with the founders speaking. And it was just superb. And so I think, smaller companies, medium-sized companies can use this to their advantage. And let's think about the world we live in today. We all have mobile phones, right? Everybody's on social media. There are influencers, creators creating all sorts of things. There are brands that come up very, very quickly. Hoka, a few years ago, the shoe I'm wearing, you would have said many years ago, it's an ugly, I So I went to New York, I was running with Nike, or Nike was what grew up on, Nike Pegasus, right? Went to New York, went to a running store, and I saw this ugly hoka. It was really ugly. But the guy told me, try them, put them on.
Yeah.
Put them on. Unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
But it was a small brand then. And you look at what Hoka is today.
Sure.
It's a lifestyle brand. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife's my wife's in fashion and clothing.
Yeah.
She's wearing them to go to work.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So you can see that a small brand comes up from nothing, can succeed, but they understood who their audience was. First, runner segment, right? Know very clearly that it's about comfort, cushioning, offering something different than the other brands. So know your audience. Then see how can I expand, you know, my revenue and my product portfolio into the lifestyle category.
Yeah.
Sure, I need to make some sneakers that look not so ugly, that look kind of nice, more neutral colors, beige, white, black, something you would wear.
Yeah.
And that's what they did very cleverly. But it comes from understanding people
Yeah.
and what basically pushes them over the edge.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I want to come back to, because that's important. Okay, I don't have a media budget. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I think that's an excuse.
Okay.
You can use social today if you're clever enough.
Yeah.
Why not? You can come up with campaigns. I just said something very important. So Facebook and Instagram give us access to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But what really makes advertising on Instagram and Facebook work is having empathy. So if you can understand what the consumer insight is, the human truth is, that allows your product or service have an edge on the others, and you can do that in a credible way.
Yeah.
That's ownable for you. That might be a way to do that, right?
Yeah.
And there are many brands now that have come up through social media. Okay, some of them are being backed by some celebrities, let's say. But I would say that, you know, if you listen to what VaynerMedia are saying on organic social.
Yeah.
And, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, love him or hate him, he's a fantastic speaker.
It's brilliant.
But he's right about a few things. We have in our hands now a mobile phone that gives us access to so many different platforms.
Yeah.
And as a marketer, that's a new, you are in a completely new game. You can change things.
Yeah.
Here's the other stat I'll say is that I was looking at global media spend.
Yeah.
So there was a media company that I saw presenting maybe a year ago in London.
Yeah.
Had a chart up, different media channels, you know, all different channels. And the line on social media from like mid-2000, you know, let's say 2015 up to 2028 went up like this exponentially. And they reckon the share of spend globally will be at 78% for social media. And it's already, I know some companies are at 60 already. By 78% by 2028. That's like around the corner.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So learn as much as you can if you're a medium and small or medium-sized company on how can you be better in social media. But then take some of the things, learn from other big brands.
Yeah.
You need consistency. You need distinctive assets.
Yeah.
Those things you can create, you can do if you're a good marketer.
Yeah.
So it's not just...
So I don't need research.
No, you do need research. You can do research as well. You do need research because you need to understand people.
Yeah.
You need to be sure the stories you're creating can work well.
Yeah.
And I think research doesn't cost as much as it used to.
I was about to say, I was
Yeah,
about to
it's
ask, is it
very-
expensive?
No, I mean, that's another thing. It's a kind of like a big myth, you know.
Because there's this whole thing that
It's
research is
nonsense, I tell you.
expensive, you
No,
don't have a
it's
budget.
complete nonsense. What's expensive is the media money behind it. It's ridiculous that we even have this conversation. And some people will say, "Oh, social media is cheap. I can just put it out there, you know, run with it." And I had this conversation with a client the other way. And in 24 hours, I'll know if it'll work. Yeah, take your money in the street, burn it. It's easier.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really great way to use your money. Just burn it in the street. It's much easier. Research costs a fraction. You know, you look at the budget of what a test costs or a lab costs. It's like this big in the bigger scheme of thing. It's really not expensive. Your CMI people or the market researchers on the corporate side are taught to basically push the finger in and challenge the research agencies and say you should do it cheaper.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's if you look at it versus production time, meeting time, hours, media money, it's really not expensive. And that's just not, that's a sorry excuse. Now we have AI coming.
Yeah.
It's here already, by the way.
It's here.
It's here. So
Yeah.
I would say we are very active in the AI space. both in Gen AI. We've got our own, Gen AI sandbox at Ipsos called Ipsos Facto. It's completely democratized in our company, so every person has access to it. All 20,000 people. It's closed. We have corporate licenses with
So
the
all
models.
these 20,000 people are from, who are these people?
Researchers at Ipsos.
Researchers, okay.
They can use it. They can use it for simple things like generating text. They can put prompts in and create learnings. They can shorten a thought piece that's 20 pages into a few pages. We have several language learning models, LLMs, from Google. So we have an agreement with Google. So we have Gemini. We have ChatGPT. We have Mistral. We have several our own stuff in there. So it's really good.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is it's not the silver bullet to everything. It's good and it helps us be more efficient. But what I wanted to say is that we have created our own predictor. So it's different to Gen AI. We have our own predictive AI.
Yeah.
So we can now, off the data that we have at Ipsos, we have a lot of data. We can actually predict the performance of an ad using AI.
Okay.
The accuracy is quite good. I would say it's not perfect.
Of
Perfect
course,
would mean it's 100% on. That's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
But it's pretty good. So for like social media, where you're like, we know for many big companies, they're creating hundreds, sometimes thousands of assets that they're putting up into social media platform.
Yeah.
So there, the cost of research might be prohibitive if you're going to do normal human, let's call it humans, that's you and I, not machines. Doing research with normal humans might be too expensive, too slow.
Yeah.
So now AI can give you an opportunity to get information in less than 15 minutes, 10 minutes on a whack of ads. In our service, you can upload as many as 100 at a time, and in less than 15 minutes, you'll have the results. And you'll have the KPIs, you'll have diagnostics and some AI eye tracking stuff, etc. Our goal is to be able to upload thousands and get data on. So that can help with this cost sort of.
I see.
But what I will say about it though, and that I'm pretty transparent about, it does not replace research with humans, because what it can't do yet, at least what we've seen, and we've been doing a lot of work in the space, is it can't, some things it struggles with.
Yeah, of course.
Emotion, empathy, things like that. So really, ads that are strong in these elements, it doesn't always predict the performance so well. So if you're going to produce a campaign that's got a lot of weight and it's a bigger brand campaign, do research with proper people, because the AI may not be able to predict that as well. So that's where we are. Yeah.
Okay, cool stuff, man. Jeez, you guys are doing a lot of work there. Yeah. I think let's talk a little bit about awards. Well, you guys are partnered with the Effies.
Yeah.
I think, do you not think we are over awarding? Because there's a lot of awards popping every other day. There's a new award show there.
Yeah.
And I think my question also would be like the credibility of these guys. I mean, how credible? Why do we need so many awards shows?
Yeah, that's maybe a question for the ad agencies, but let me answer it in my own words and what I think you've asked me the question. So I think it's good to have awards, let's say in general, because it's like anything. It's like a competition.
Yeah.
And competition is good because what it does is it pushes everybody to produce better work, right? It's the same as when you have a competition in tennis and you've submitted yourself to play in this tennis tournament. You're going to train really hard because you want to get to the semifinals or potentially the finals. And that's the same for any ad agency or marketer, right? They want to produce their best work. Now, so the fundamental principle of having awards is a good thing. Everybody wants to celebrate success in a good way. And I think that that's good and it's necessary. Having Cannes, having the pencils, having the Luries, having Effie. I would partly agree with you that maybe we've gone a little bit too crazy with the amount of awards that are out there, and that's, so who am I to judge? But I do think we need, there are quite a lot. So, okay, maybe everybody will have their own reason for being, and that's okay. I think the question really starts, what are we judging the creative and the campaigns on? And I think that needs a debate.
That needs a debate,
because I think it's, in my personal opinion, is too subjective. And depending on the jury you have and the mechanisms you have will you know, and the influence you have in that jury and the mechanisms you have will also depend on who's awarded.
Yeah.
And then some, of course, are you need to put money down and put a case study together. So the whole thing is a little bit complex.
Yeah, because also
So-
I think creative, particularly on creative, there's no, I mean, is there any, what are we judging creativity, and creativity sometimes that is not backed up by any.
Well, I think okay, so I need to give some of the guys who may be watching this and have their shotgun pointed at me,
Yeah.
give them some credit, because obviously normally when you're looking at a panel who are judging awards, these are not any fly-by-night people. They're people with really a wealth of experience who
Yeah.
actually can normally tell if a campaign has legs or not. So
Yeah.
let's say that, because I think
but I think, let me challenge you there. So
no, fine, go for it, yeah.
Now the thing is also like, because creative people are creative people, and I think creative idea. If we are creative people, creative idea, it's one that excites me and all of that, and it might not necessarily. It's for our peers. Sometimes it can be for our peers in a sense that oh, look what I've done. Yeah, this is so cool, man.
Absolutely.
Without any backing of like a, you know, does this thing work? Does this thing deliver on? Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, you hit. So I think a few things. So I think the first thing is that I think some of the panels could be better represented not only with creative agencies or marketers. So have a researcher, for example. Have somebody that looks at data represented in your panel.
Yeah.
That would be for Cannes. They should be doing
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't work. I don't think it
Cannes
works.
should be asking Ipsos, Kantar, whoever the big research agencies are, to be represented in those panels, in my opinion. We have a lot of experience, by the way. We work with across sector. We have a lot of experience, and underestimate how much knowledge we have. That's the first thing. I think it could be better representation. Second thing, the way that you judge them. There's different ways. People have ladders, people have things. That is, again, subjective. How do you judge that creative based on the ladder? So somebody takes an X and marks that. No, I think you're right. You need to, that's why I like Effie, because you have to put your weight, your data, your case, really have to have the data to show that your campaign has really been effective.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be done in a better way. So like Cannes Lions is trying to do that. They have a separation of different kinds of awards now, as you've probably seen. But I think there's still a lot of room to improve. And we, you know, we look at some of them and we know, if we look at some of the past winners, even some of the Lions Awards winners, I would say, yes, I'm happy for them. But I would say, oh, is that really representative of some of the best campaigns in the world? I would argue no. So I would say that that needs to be worked through. But yeah, I think there's a need to have different kinds of people seated at the table.
Yeah.
There needs to be a question raised to those kinds of juries on the mechanisms and mechanics of how they judge those submissions, and then make it a bit more rigorous, add a bit more data in it, that we've got something to judge and some evidence that this has been done in the right way. That would make a huge difference. And by the way, it would also be good for the industry, because then what you have is you don't have what we often talk about, is this creativity gap or lack of confidence that marketers sometimes have when they go to the CFO and they say, hey, this is my story, and they're feeling this big. Instead, now they come with evidence and they say, well, here's the proof that we've
How does because I know now, is it Essential? You were telling me now they just, they acquired the Effies. Is that the reason why, because to your point, is that why the matrix to measure, is that what it is, or you're just one of those will acquire you guys, come here?
I can't speak for the Essential Group. I mean, they must know. I mean, it's an interesting one to look at, because now you have Cannes Lions, you have Contagious, you have Walk, and you have Effie all together under one house. And that's even more complicated because you have another company, Informa, who bought Essential. So it's a takeover over the takeover. I would hope that that's the intention, and I think that we've already heard, you know, over the wires that and I suspect that Cannes Lions, through Essential and Effie will work closer together. I assume that's already happening with Contagious And Contagious is a smaller agency that are London-based that do really cool stuff. You should look them up. But
I'll check it out.
but yes, I suspect that's what's going to happen, and I hope that Effie will play a bigger role in Cannes. I think we'll see that this year. I'm pretty sure. In fact, I know.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it makes sense, and but I think that should be welcoming for the industry. I mean, I think the more we can have it, and by the way, a marketer, I know for a fact that if I speak to some of, having a Cannes line is awesome. I mean, having that on your mantelpiece is a big thing, right? As a creative or a marketer.
Yeah.
But having an Effie as a marketer is a big deal. It's a big deal, and so yeah. So I think there is room for us, and I would really welcome if they, opened the door to the research industry and said, "Hey guys, come and have a seat.
Come in and have a seat."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear your voice. So yeah.
Pineapple and Halo, their partner agency, I think they won a they won a Grand Effie last year. Are you involved in judging? No, not at all.
No, I wasn't involved in that. Yeah, I can't say anything.
Oh, you can't say. Yeah. And I'm just saying, this year, not involved at all.
Not in South Africa.
Not in South Africa. Oh.
I was involved. So I wasn't involved in the judging of the Effies in South Africa. I know of it, of course.
Yeah.
But I was involved in judging some other awards. So you mentioned that yourself. 2 years ago, the Best of the Best. So that's basically the global awards for Effie, where they take the grand Effies and the golds from the different regions, and they award what they call the Iridium, which is the top Effie award for globally. So McDonald's won it last time, and where the data is I think it's being judged already, the Best of the Best. So that's not released yet. I think the 2024 Best of the Best will be released probably just before Cannes.
So you were judging that?
I wasn't involved. You can only do 1 year and then you skip a year. So I was in the European regional last year. Yeah. Yeah. So you take I think a step out of the year. Maybe this year I'll be in. They've asked me again, so I'll either be involved in UK regional or global again. But we are working with Effie on the global awards.
Yeah.
But the pineapple one, I mean, it's a good case for. I mean, it's a smaller player in the market share.
Yeah.
So to our discussion earlier. It's a good example of doing something very effective and different versus some of the bigger players. I mean, hats off to them, hey?
Hats off to them
for doing that and coming out with such a great case.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think so, because you are running, you playing in both, global market and the local market, and you just said now. So South Africa is a creative hub. I think that's creative. I think on the marketing side of things, do you think how are we performing there as a country compared to global markets?
That's a heavy question, man.
Yeah. That's why you are here.
Yeah. It's a heavy question. I mean, it's
also we can coin it this way. How is the world? Do you think? Well, I'm saying South Africa because we are here. I mean, you can also flip it and say, how is, if you look at those Super Bowl ads and campaigns, how they were doing, how were they doing? I mean, compared to what we've been doing here.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to compare Super Bowl and what we do here in South Africa.
So there are some great South African examples of great marketing that I think the world can learn from. Obviously we know Heineken just acquired Distel.
Yeah.
So, if we think of Savannah and what Savannah have been doing over the years consistently.
Yeah.
I remember when, I can't remember the tag of it, it's dry, you can drink it or something like that.
That's the one. Yeah.
So, I mean, the creative, I haven't seen the recent stuff, but I remember over the years.
The recent stuff is crazy. It's too nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty consistent in the way that, so they do very good job of being consistent, but then creatively raising the bar every time.
Yeah.
Nando's is another one.
Yeah.
Nando's has always been at the front foot, on the front foot of. So there's some interesting learnings.
They've been kicked around though, Nando's.
Yeah. Okay. Now, right. They're a little bit always on at the fringe of being a little bit politically incorrect, whatever. But the point is, there are some really gold nuggets here, and I think some good examples that a lot of international brands could learn from. And now I said Heineken are obviously going to do that with the brands that they've acquired. The same when AB InBev came in for South African breweries.
Yeah.
You had Carling Black Label. Many years ago, you had to, and when I started working, 1998, so it's a long time ago, I was working on the research side. My biggest client was SAB. So I worked on these brands
Yeah.
a long time ago, and I was going to the Shabeens in Soweto, and I did a segmentation. So I knew about Carling and Lion and Castle and the positioning it had.
Yeah.
And, you know, fast forward to just a few years ago when the team there took the positioning, they had to change the positioning of Carling Black Label to make it more appealing to a broader audience, because it was too focused on the male positioning,
Yeah.
which had a negative connotation. And they said, okay, we need to take head on the things that are hurting our brand, like domestic violence and the plight of women. And, you know, a man is not just somebody who opens the courts up with his teeth. He can be somebody who has something different.
Yeah.
And they had that a campaign, Brave, Bold, you know, that campaign, that first one where the guy is a testimonial talking about what it is to be like a real man,
Yeah.
which was not a picture of somebody who's breaking a bottle open. But that campaign went on to do some things in activation around Carling that was quite honestly like, holy cow,
Yeah.
that is something very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very sure that ABI took that learning on for some other brands around the world. So there are some inspirational cases, and South Africa needs to use those cases more. And you talked about awards. It's a perfect case for South Africa to submit more cases to Cannes. Why not? Do that. Effie, the marketers watching this or listening, be brave. Put your campaigns that you're really proud of forward for awards. That's where the recognition and the awards can be inspirational for other countries. So I think we have a lot of really good stuff, really good stuff that the world can profit from. Not everything that's happening in the US and Europe and everywhere else is great at the moment, to be honest. Back to Super Bowl. Super Bowl is watched by 120 million people.
Yeah.
It is the event that has the biggest reach in the world in terms of TV, right? So for a marketer, you know, taking 30 or 60 seconds, we always talk about the price tag of that spot. It doesn't matter, because you're going to get such big reach. The creative that's there, yes, there is some really good advertising there, but there's some really bad stuff as well. You know, what we learn from that is just by having a celebrity in an ad and making it absolutely crazy in terms of storytelling is not necessarily going to give you the bang for your buck. And I saw some ads, you know, a few years ago, automotive ad with a certain celebrity who is this eco warrior. I'm trying not to mention the brands. And it's quite difficult. And this was this woman who's this eco warrior, you know, getting, you know, all over with different vignettes and different scenes, showing her, you know, basically escaping from a charging rhino, you know, escaping from a whale about to capsize on the top of a boat. Insane. And she's a comedian, so, you know, the American population know who she was. Absolutely terrible. Terrible. And did nothing for the brand, this automotive brand from Asia. And so that's an example of that. Just because you're in the Super Bowl and you're advertising it doesn't mean you're actually doing a good job. There's tons of stuff that's really awful. And that's because they don't do their research properly, just to bring it full circle. We have some clients who advertise in the Super Bowl who are maybe not always on the top rankings. Some of the top rankings they are, but they know exactly what they're doing. And they research their ads. I'm telling you, almost a year in advance, they start to think about it. They're working through it because it's a lot of money. So but I think, so there's some learnings there. But again, South Africa, there's really good stuff here. I think need to get it out there a bit more, and there's some inspirational stuff the world needs to see, I think. And
what is your the recent most favorite Super Bowl ad?
Whew, that's a tough one here. Okay, so there are two. Oh, there are three.
Okay.
4. So let's start with the one that didn't make the Super Bowl, but was aired before the Super Bowl. It didn't make the cut, and we gave it an award. So the way Ipsos does it is we triangulate 3 pieces of data. Our Creator Spark, our testing data. We have social intelligence data. So we scrape everything and look at the comments and everything. And we do day after recall surveys with Gen Pop after the Super Bowl's aired to see what people really remembered. That is the acid test, because it's spontaneous. So there are 3 ads. The ad that really performed, so Doritos created 3 ads before the Super Bowl.
The Pepsi ad.
Yeah, so
PepsiCo.
don't go to the seal just yet. So Doritos,
okay.
the crisp.
Yeah.
So there are 3 ads, right? So there's the abduction of the aliens. I can't remember the other one.
Wait, isn't Doritos owned by PepsiCo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the barbershop. Okay, this dude, he's sitting in a chair getting his hair cut. And this guy who's cutting his hair is basically eating the chips, and he's got orange fingers from the Doritos. And the guy sitting in the chair looks at his finger, and then you see him take a finger and suck the hairdresser's finger.
Jeez, I didn't see that one.
And then, of course, there's the camera freezes on the expression of the hairdresser.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing? You know, basically, what the hell are you doing? You know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what is going on here? And then the guy's chucked out of the barbershop, and he's
Yeah.
got the bag of Doritos, and he's eating it. And that's it. That one they didn't air.
Yeah.
They must have done some research that said, with another methodology, obviously, which we obviously was wrong,
Yeah.
and said that don't air that one, air the alien abduction. What we did is we checked it in research, and the one that was stronger was the barbershop.
Oh.
So that's my favorites.
Sure.
Perfect. It's really, it's crisp. You don't need to be, you know, appealing or anything. You need a funny story that's anchored in people's heads. So number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, it's not the strongest ad in terms of story arc, but it's the strongest ad in terms of distinctive assets.
Yeah.
It was the Budweiser ad with the Clydesdale. Now, some people will say, Shaun, you can't be serious. The horse, you know, the story about the Clydesdales taking barrels of Budweiser to a pub in St. Louis. One of the barrels of beer rolls off the thing, and there's a young horse that doesn't make the cut to go to with the other Clydesdales to pull the cart with the barrel. So the young horse is there and sees the barrel, and then the young horse jumps over the fence and kicks the barrel all the way around, eventually into the bar. And these guys standing in the bar says, have you heard the joke? Horse comes into a bar, and then the horse comes into the bar with a barrel of beer. So it's cheesy.
Yeah, it's very cheesy.
It is cheesy, but it's good.
It's good, yeah.
And I tell you, it's more. I'm telling you, it's more effective than any of the other ads.
Yeah.
That's what they need. They don't. Do you need to be? They got number 1 in the ad meter. Okay, so the reason they got number 1 in the ad meter, and they ask people, is because what do American people associate with the Super Bowl? When you ask them spontaneously, what advertising do you remember? They'll just say Clydesdales. And Clydesdales, it's a distinctive asset Budweiser can use for years. So that's good. That's clever. Not necessarily the strongest story, but clever.
Yeah.
Then there was one from Novartis, which was about a very interesting topic, was about breast cancer awareness.
Okay.
So the idea was for them to take, you should go for a regular check. But what they do is they show a woman on the screen, obviously with their breasts and obviously not naked, but different scenes of women going in different situations, and always focused on the breasts.
Yeah.
And it's, it must be 25 seconds of this going on in different formats, so cheerleader, then this, and eventually it's this section of the bra coming, you see a bra, and then this woman comes up as a testimonial, you know, and her message is, you know, basically it's awareness around, you know, having a regular check.
Yeah.
I can't describe it. You have to see it.
I have to see it. Yeah.
It is absolutely good. It's flipping brilliant.
And how did that perform?
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Off the charts. So it was really good, and it got a lot of social pickup as well. So I think that one is really, really good. Yeah, there were a few others that were good.
And the seal one? Seal?
The seal's good.
Mountain
Yeah,
Dew?
seal was good. I mean, you know, Mountain Dew. I mean, I don't know how Seal agreed to do that. You got to ask yourself, the marketing person who got him to agree to do that, he's got a good sense of humor. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Must be the bucks, the big bucks, eh? They must
Yeah,
have,
but it's also kind of, you know, it's fun doing something like that, right? No, I think that is really creative, and it's from a story perspective. It's a fizzy drink. Let's be honest. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You have to be wacky. I think Pepsi's their creative is definitely got better and better, and they are very good in some of their brands. Some of their brands not so good.
And funny enough, PepsiCo now, I think in America they have like in-house agencies. They don't do like it's in-house.
I don't know the whole structure, but
I've seen a few.
Many companies have that. So many companies have internal agencies and external.
Yeah. I think in PepsiCo it might be the case in external and internal. Yeah.
No, so Super Bowl's fun. It's always great. There's loads of really good examples. So yeah.
Cool, man. Cool conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we've
Tobofo.
came to our to the end of our chat.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you so
much for
much.
blessing us with your presence, brother.
Oh, thank
Really
you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
been great to be here with everyone, and great to talk about these things. And
Cool.
thanks for having me,
Yeah,
man.
we'll be coming to Germany. Please host us that side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime, man.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
cool stuff. Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot.
Folks, thank you very much for tuning in. That's Shaun Dix, ladies and gents. We really had a good chat. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.
CXC, that's culture.